Kate. So tonight we're going to talk about children going back to school and how parents and kids can work cooperatively to get them ready to go back, have a nice, quiet, peaceful transition from summertime into the school time. Tonight, my guest is Kate Garzon, and she is literally a GPS for parents and toddlers, for parents of toddlers through their teenage years. She's been an educator for over 30 years. She has been a Montessori teacher. She's taught ages 2.5 to about 14. She's just such a relaxing, energizing, and soothing force when it comes to parents and their kids. She tries to bring ease and joy into family life. She has a customized approach. She uses practical ways to guide parents as they raise their children so that they're responsible, compassionate, and fulfilled adults. And I've known her for a few years now, and it's not just kids
now.
for 5 years. Yeah. It's not just kids that she helps, because every time I hear her speak, there's, whether you're working, your children are little small humans, or if your children are the people that you work with, she's just got great ideas how to interact with others, how to do it in a compassionate, loving, caring way, so that there's peace. And we all want peace in our lives, right?
Well, thank you for the lovely introduction, Dr. Case. Tell us about yourself too, because you're chiropractor extraordinaire, person who keeps putting my husband and I back together after every sports injury or ache or pain of aging.
I've been a chiropractor for a lot of years, since the late 90s. I did get my certificate in sports chiropractic in 2013. So I work with a lot of athletes, a lot of young athletes. I also practice functional medicine. So I tend to look at the root cause of why things are happening in the body, not just fixing it once it's broken, but actually finding the root causes of why things might be going wrong. I'm a wife. I have 5 children, 4 dogs. My practice,
2 geckos.
a couple of geckos. Yep. And my practice really focuses on optimizing your health, promoting well-being, treating everybody as an individual. So we really have a bio-individual approach, and we treat throughout the life cycle from birth until death. And we really use root cause medicine, nutrition, movement, compassion, and understanding.
And you're kind. That was the first thing that we noticed about you when we came into your practice for the first time.
Oh, well,
you were actually filling in at the time. And
that's right.
We met
That's
you,
right.
and I had a fairly significant injury, and you just took care of everything. So it was,
Well, I think I do think that kindness and empathy is something that's missing in healthcare today. And so one thing that I find, I think both of us, we try to bring that empathy, we try to bring that compassion back into the lives of the people that we work with, because people want to know that they're cared for.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody wants to be on an island. Right. They want to be heard.
Yeah.
They want to be heard. And so we try and both kind of offer tools so that people know that we're listening, and people are able to take their problems and use a new approach.
For sure.
In order to share that empathy with somebody else.
Something else that comes into it too, and I know from having worked with you, is there's never any guilting, like, oh, you should have been doing this differently. Right. This is kind of your own fault. There's never any of that. It's let's meet you where you're at and move you forward. So it's a very comfortable scenario where, we never feel like we can't tell you something that we've done or something that we've tried, because we know that you're not going to, guilt us or make us feel bad. And the same, applies in my line of work. If a parent thinks they're going to get shamed for something that they've done, they're never going to call me.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that, generations before us, I know when I was growing up, guilt was a major part of my upbringing.
Oh, yes.
It was always guilt and food, right?
And
If
Generous
I
helping
can't
of
guilt you
both.
into it, then I'm going to overfeed you. So yeah, so I think we may err on the opposite side of that, where we want to raise kids that don't feel guilty about everything, are able to look at their problems, evaluate them, and then come to find solutions on their
Right.
own.
Absolutely.
So
And
we
be
want
accountable.
independent adults.
They need to be accountable. They need to make amends, all of those things. This is, we're not advocating for a life without boundaries, but, you can, as a parent, you can hold boundaries without making your kid feel like a terrible human,
Exactly.
for making a mistake. So on
Yes.
that note, what are we talking about first?
So we've got five key elements that we're going to discuss tonight, and I think it's probably a good idea to start with finding balance and body budgeting. Let's see, how much is too much? How do we set the children up so that they understand what their limits are?
Right.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it sounds great. So the concept of a body budget is kind of a new one. There's a neuroscientist, wonderful neuroscientist. Her name is Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she kind of pioneered this idea that the brain's job is not actually to think. The brain's job is to regulate all of the processes that are happening in the body, and all of those processes far better than I do. But it's to keep everything in homeostasis, right? Your sugar levels and your sleep levels and all your hormone levels and all the, when you're in the stress response, fight, flight, all of those things. But the
Mhm.
really cool thing is there's this child psychologist named Dr. Mona Delahook, and she is applying the concept of body budgets to parenting and to education and
So
to
fascinating.
behavior.
Hmm.
And, the notion of behavior as communication is something that, the folks in the parenting and education sphere have been pressing for a few years now, that, your kids are not behaving in a certain way because they're trying to drive you nuts. They're trying to communicate something to you, whether they know it or not. So the concept of body budgets is that, every human processes the world in a different way. For some people, bright lights and loud noises are incredibly stimulating and amazing. And for other people, they're overwhelming and terrifying, right? Some people have huge energy levels. Some people have very low energy levels. Some people are introverted. Some people are extroverted. When you look at that in kids and teens and you think about a school day for them, there is a cost to their body budget to sit in their seat, to listen, to focus, to pay attention, to not punch the kid on the playground who said something stupid, to handle all of the stimuli that's coming in. Some kids handle it really quite well because their body budget is very expansive and forgiving. For other kids, that tax to their body budget is huge. So they come home from school and they're surly, they're moody, they're cranky. Partly it's because they're tired, maybe they're hungry. A huge part of that is they've just been asked to do so much in a day.
Right.
And so, if we use that as a framework to think about what are the extracurricular activities I'm going to put my kid in? What are what's our evening going to look like? What is to their benefit and what is to their detriment? For each particular child, because the world lands on each kid in a different way. It
Right.
lands on each parent in a different way. And body budgets are not static. So what kid A can handle on a Monday, kid A might not be able to handle by Friday. So it's super important as parents to kind of look at, what are the pain points in our interactions? What are the pain points in our day? Where's my kid melting down? Where am I getting pushback? Where, at what point am I losing them? Is the cooperation and the flexibility kind of falling by the wayside? I was having a conversation with a mom a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, like, my son gets off the bus every day that we have karate. He gets off the bus and he's a nightmare. And I said to her, this is really good information. Let's be a detective. Let's talk about that. Turns out karate day also coincided with the day that he had phys ed as the last class of the day.
I see.
So by the time he got home, he was starving and tired and sweaty, and he didn't want to get in the car and head straight to karate.
Right.
Once we had that information, we were able to decide, like, is karate something he really genuinely loves and it's just bad timing? Or is karate something you need to take out for now or forever? So it's
Right.
it's just the body budget is a framework to look at, you know, what does my child need from me in this moment to help bring them back into balance? Do they need a hug? Do they need a conversation? Do they need to go for a walk? Do they need a snack? Do they need to be reminded to go to the bathroom? You know, whatever it happens to be, it can be super individualized to each child, rather than parents feeling like they've just got this house full of monsters and they don't know what to do about it.
Right. So one thing that I heard you say is that you really need to ask yourself, what does my child need from me right now when
Absolutely.
they're getting off that bus and they're crazy? Is it
Absolutely.
that child, does he need to eat? Does he need to sit? Does he need to relax? So is it important to know what kind of ways your child, or what kinds of things will relax your child? Is it listening to nice
Absolutely.
music? Is it sitting in a dark room? Is it having a fuzzy blanket that they can hold on to? Is it looking at or smelling, some essential oils? So you really need to look at your child and be able to say, well, how can I kind of calm him down right now? And for some people, it might be listening to loud music and banging your head.
Right.
And other people, it might be, listening to, quiet jazz and smelling, fresh orange essence or something like that.
Absolutely. And it might be different on a different day. You know,
Hmm.
some days your kids might need to really move around. They might need to just be in the yard, running around playing. Or if you don't have a yard, maybe you're stopping on the drive home from school and hitting a park and spending some time, because then they're getting fresh air, they're getting time in nature, they're getting movement, they're getting unstructured child-led play. You know, it's when they're little, it's a guessing game. And you know, you alluded to the fact that you really just have to have a toolbox based on what you know about your child so far, right? If you've got a 2-year-old, you only have 2 years worth of data. If you've got a 7-year-old, you've got 7 years worth of data. The older they get, the more you can have these conversations and help them understand what they need and how to advocate for what they need. But you know, when they're little, especially, you just try a bunch of things and you see what works. And you know, you're absolutely right that taking their sensory profile is into consideration is hugely important, because what you need to relax is not necessarily what your child needs.
And if
Um,
there are things once they get out of school, and if they're crazed and tired, then maybe doing some of those sensory relaxation things or giving them a snack that they like and then giving them a little bit of downtime kind
exactly.
of prepares them and revs them up and gives them the ability to move on. Say they do have something they can't just cut out.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it kind
And
of,
the mornings are no different. You know, if you know that you've got a slow riser,
mm-hmm,
setting the alarm for the last possible moment and running frantically around the house to get ready is not going to work for them.
mm,
And you can try to fight that and you can try to turn them into the kind of kid that can go with the rest of the family on that, but it's not going to go well for any
right,
of you. You know,
right,
so maybe if you've got 3 kids, one of them's a slow riser and the other two can jump out of bed and go, then you think about, you problem solve how to help that kid get going a little more slowly and a little more gently before the other two are out of bed racing around
got
like
you,
maniacs,
right.
right? So you look at the kids you have,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the body budgets they have and the temperaments they have, the neurology they have, the sensory profile they have, and you work within it. Because if you're fighting it, you're not only going to lose that battle, but you're also missing out on beautiful relationship building opportunities and
That's true.
opportunities to
I
really
agree.
value who they are as a person. Because that slow to rise kid might drive you nuts in the morning, but at
Mhm.
night when you want cuddles, they're your go to.
Right.
So, you know, if you can really just value who they are and respect who they are, over time, you're going to be able to expand their comfort zone. You're going to be able to expand what feels good for them and make them, I don't want to say the term make them more flexible because you can't
Right.
force flexibility, but from a place of safety and from a place of being understood and feeling like their body is calm, that's where they can stretch and grow. So the more you can give them of that, the more you can ask of them. It's not that you're just trying to cushion them from the realities of life forever.
Right. So do we try to empower our children and have them learn how they learn best? How would you what would you recommend to a parent who is sending a child into a new classroom? Would you recommend that they discuss it with the teacher and say, look, these kinds of things may be helpful? Do you just throw them in and hope that the teacher can figure it out?
It really depends on the age of the kid, because it's unfair to expect a very young child to advocate for themselves. And, the primary relationship, school relationship for young kids is going to be a triad between parent and teacher and student. So if as a parent, that your child has learning challenges, is neurodiverse, if you have any diagnoses, absolutely be having those conversations with the teacher and looking for the best fit in terms of a school. We could spend hours just talking about that. But
Yeah,
the
there's so many different
older,
kinds.
and the
Yeah,
older
nowadays.
the kids get, the more they need to advocate for themselves. If a middle schooler is able to walk into the teacher and say, "Hey, I'm a fidgeter and I don't want to bother anybody else. Is it okay if I sit at the back of the room so that I'm not going to bother anybody while I'm doing the thing that I need in order to focus?"
I think I'm going to do that the next time I go to a conference.
Right?
I need to sit in the back because I need to fidget. So
Yeah, or the kid who needs movement, you know, talk to the teacher, because as a former teacher, I can speak to the fact that it's really challenging if every single kid in the room needs something different and what this kid needs is disturbing this kid. You have to find a balance. For middle schoolers and up, you actually have those conversations collaboratively as a class. And you build consensus, and you build in conversations about learning styles and respecting people's needs and all of that within the classroom, class meetings and whatnot. It's challenging for parents and students because not every teacher is open to that.
right.
And not every parent is sharing all the information that a teacher needs. So it's not a blanket statement, but the kind of general guideline is the older the child is, the more responsibility they're taking for their own learning.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, and
That's
we've talked a little bit about the sort of sensory body budget piece, but
right.
I know you as a medical professional feel that the most important contribution to that body budget is sleep.
Yeah. So
You want to
I
talk
think
about that a little bit?
sleep is a good one. Sleep's a tough one,
Yeah.
right? So there's so much we could talk about
Oh my
sleep.
God, we could
So
do hours and hours just on
hours and hours and hours. So I just thought it was interesting. I did some research about sleep, and I've
okay.
done, just looking at what kinds of studies have been done. And it just so happens that over the past century, I mean, this is not just a few years of research. This is looking at about 100 years. They've looked at child and sleep, and there's been a deficit.
Oh, for
For
sure.
about 100 years, all the research shows that as much as we try to get more sleep in there, there's always been a deficit between the amount of actual sleep. It's about 37 minutes, they said, over
Okay, and
100
that adds
years.
up over time. Yeah.
Yep. So there's always been a deficit. So no matter what we try, and that sleep keeps decreasing. So is it because we're just evolving and we need less sleep? Or is it because we're just busier and
Right.
we're not allowing ourselves that extra amount of sleep?
Right.
So really, I think consistency, I think continuity is just really important. Finding out how much sleep your child needs and making a plan and sticking to that plan,
Yeah.
right? Even on the weekends. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
and that's a hard thing, especially for teenagers, because they want to be out, doing things on the weekends.
Right.
But we do know from the research that a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake time is better for the body. It's just a hard thing to to implement.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, especially now. I think kids are a lot busier. Kids are overscheduled
Yes,
and there's a lot
absolutely.
of technology. So I do think that, how do we prepare our children for sleep? So we want it to be, a dark area. We want to limit the amount of light. We want to limit the amount of technology. So having a quiet, dark, having a relaxing room.
For
And if they
sure.
do that consistently, when they go into the room, the body automatically will start to shut down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that,
So
speaking
it's
to the
really
screens, we need to shut those screens off at least
right.
an hour before preparing for bed.
Right. And even
Um,
things like the screen, the light, the blue light, having
mm,
glasses, you have to protect your eyes,
mhm.
and that goes to nutrition also. You got to make sure that you're getting a lot of your yellow vegetables, your orange vegetables, because you've got those extra vitamins in there, your extra eye protection.
Oh, I didn't
Parents'
realize that the
choice.
orange and yellow is what
Yes, the
protects
orange
the
and
eyes.
yellow. And I'm going to go into that a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about foods and what each different color
Okay.
does for the body.
Okay. That's
So
good to
what
know.
about, I know I sleep better when it's cooler
Yes.
in the
Yeah, the
house.
optimal
So,
temperature is around 68 degrees
okay.
for our viewers who are watching this in the US. Yeah, 68 degrees. And that's for like infants all the way through.
Right. So you
68
can
to
say it in
70.
Celsius, but no one in the United States is going to
They're
know
not
what
gonna know
you're
what I'm talking about.
Mhm. And then what about exercise? Would you recommend? I mean, kids are getting exercise in school, they've got phys ed, kids are getting exercise after, they've got sports, soccer, whatever, karate, they're all over exercised.
Well, it's interesting, the families that have resources
Mhm.
have their kids in these activities. So they're getting exercise, which is not to be confused with play, right? Play is a very different thing than structured activities. And again, I could talk for hours about play, but that's another webinar. But if they exercise too close to bed, so let's say your family, they've got after school pickup, they've got tutoring, or they've got soccer, or they've got swimming lessons, then they've got to do their homework. The family's racing around until 8:30 at night,
Mhm.
and then suddenly like bedtime is 9 o'clock, and their bodies are just being asked to like stop. And it's an interesting phenomenon because parents are putting their kids in these activities because they want them to have opportunities that
Right.
will lead to them being successful later in life.
Mhm.
And sometimes they're putting them in because the kids really, really, really want to do those activities. And that's wonderful, but it's still up to the parents to set the boundaries for what is reasonable. Your kid might love playing six sports,
Right.
but financially, logistically, and in terms of the household, that isn't realistic. The hard part is that because so many kids are overscheduled, and it bleeds into sleep because they're
Right.
overscheduled with the goal of making sure that they have all the doors open to them for a successful future.
Right.
They're missing out on things that they absolutely need right now
Mhm.
in order to have a healthy childhood, but to have the healthy brain development so that they can have that successful future and not flame out in their first year of college with anxiety and depression because their brain has not developed everything it needs for them to be
Right.
successful.
Right.
And it ties into sleep because um, we know that infants and toddlers need 11 to 14 hours of sleep a day, including their naps. And then, the kind of preschool crowd needs 10 to 13 hours.
Right.
And then
And
the
then a little
elementary
bit
school
less.
age needs 10 to 12, but high schoolers still need 8 to 10. And I don't
Right.
know a single high schooler who's getting
No.
8 to 10 hours of sleep a night.
No. And I think it's because I think there's a lot of pressure put on kids nowadays. They have to have that pressure for success. There's the pressure to have your resume,
Yes,
so to speak,
for sure.
college pressure, there's peer pressure.
For sure.
What do you mean you're not on the soccer team? What do you mean? You're not going to have three different sports. You're never going to get into school.
Yeah.
And then there's homework. I think that the homework is kind of skewed in a kind of a mismatched way. They
Yeah.
don't need as much homework. There's no reason for a student to have 4 hours of homework every night on top of everything else they're doing.
There is not. Up to sixth grade, we have some pretty strong evidence to support that homework is actually detrimental. Up to that age. The problem is that, high schoolers have X amount of homework every night in preparation for college. So then we give middle schoolers X amount in preparation for high school. So then we give elementary schoolers X amount in preparation for middle school. And
Right.
then we give these kindergarten kids homework in preparation for elementary school. And what they should be doing is unstructured child led play, device free quality time with their families,
Right.
getting adequate sleep, just downtime where they can daydream or create or just be kids. Those are the things that we know from the data support long term healthy brain development
Right.
and play in particular protects against anxiety and depression. It supports emotional self regulation. It
Mhm.
supports all of the interpersonal skills that they're going to need to be successful
Right.
down the road. So when kids go from activity to activity to activity to bed, they're missing out on crucial protective factors
Right.
against significant issues down the road. So it's tough because parents are lovingly and in a well-intentioned way attempting to give their kids everything they could possibly need for an unknown future. But unfortunately, they're taking away things they legitimately do need
Right,
for
which
an
is going to
unknown.
impact how well they're able to process and how for brain development and brain
For sure.
longevity, you want to really build those skills
For
early
sure.
on,
For
and then
sure.
they'll be long lasting for a lifetime. So,
And
and we know
sleep,
that when you sleep better, your attention is better,
absolutely.
learning and
Memory,
behavior is
learning.
easier,
Yeah.
memory is better, your emotional regulation is a lot better.
For sure. Hormonal
Yeah.
regulation, you know this, right? You're the
Yes.
queen of
Yep.
hormones, and
Yep.
it's, particularly you're looking at these adolescents, their hormones are firing up in a way they never have before,
Right.
and they are not getting enough sleep, and hormone
Hmm.
regulation happens while you sleep. So
Yep.
it's really tricky. I think the particularly for adolescents, that devices are challenging because so much of their social lives are
Hmm.
connected to what is happening, and the thought of something happening while you're not paying attention is really scary for a teenager, and it's understandably scary.
Right.
So families need to work together to come up with reasonable guidelines to support healthy relationships with devices, and to ensure that kids and teens are getting the sleep that they need and the device free time that they need for their brains to do, all the other things that they need to do.
And I think that's a
Um,
conversation that they should also bring to schools.
for sure.
Yeah, I do think having that conversation and saying, it's okay, let them know that it's okay if all of a sudden you don't see the three bubbles within milliseconds of when you sent that text, and it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that your world is going to end. And I
yeah,
think we need to have those conversations, because that peer pressure, I mean, there's so much of an immediate response
yeah.
that people are expecting now, and it can be detrimental.
Well, even as adults, I mean, we didn't grow up with cell phones. I didn't get my first iPhone till 2013, maybe.
Yeah.
And we still, like, I can't keep my phone near me when I'm working because it's so
Mm,
easy to just pick it up. So I
right.
think for families, sitting down and collaboratively agreeing on spaces in the home that are going to be device free.
Hmm.
Bedrooms at night absolutely has to be one of the places
Yes.
that's device free. Dining
Yep.
table is a place that needs to be device free.
Hmm.
But talk about it, figure out, the spaces in your home where devices are not going to be welcome,
Hmm.
and times of day. If your family's sitting down to have a meal or a snack together, that's a great opportunity to have that be device free. If the
Yeah.
family's sitting down and watching a movie together, that's a great opportunity to put the devices in another room so you're not tempted to be looking and scrolling, because over time you'll develop positive habits and a positive relationship rather than feeling like you have to have it with you all the time. You get comfortable having it away from you.
Right. And how
And
many times now do we go into a restaurant and we see that the parents are talking and the kids are lined up and they each have a movie,
yes,
and they're glued to that movie. They're not engaging, they're not learning, they're not
yeah,
experiencing life. They're
yes,
just, peeled onto
they are. Now, for
that
some, for
device.
some kids who experience particular kinds of neurodiversity, having that screen is a lifesaver for parents because it gives the child a chance to zone out, right?
Uh-huh.
Particularly if it's what their body budget needs. We've got these dinner plans. The parents are really looking forward to going to this restaurant. This kiddo is not in a state right now where they can handle it. And the only way it's going to work for everybody is if that child is on a screen with headphones, zoning out the rest of the world and using that as their downtime. So
Right.
there
That's
are
why they
certain,
invented Netflix, right? So that we have that opportunity to binge all night long, right?
but there are certain circumstances under which, it's important, particularly when you walk into a restaurant and you see, like, instead of judging like, oh, that family's got, all their kids on devices, we don't know what kind of day they had.
It's true. That's a really
So,
good point.
and we don't know what kind of, body budgets they're working with and
Mhm.
neurodiversity they're working with.
That's very
So,
true.
obviously I'd love to be working with those families so we can expand the repertoire of
Right.
different options. But for
Mhm.
some, it's life or death. And,
Yeah.
I respect that.
Right. And
Um,
we do know that with when you're not sleeping as much, there's more problems with attention, there's
mhm.
more problems with your learning. There's also increased risk of different health effects. right? So there's a higher risk of depression, there's a higher risk of diabetes, there's a higher risk of hypertension and obesity later on. So we're not just using sleep to kind of rejuvenate our brains, but our bodies as well. So it's the time when we're sleeping and those different phases of sleep that we go through, your body needs to like reorganize. So you need to send some things to memory. You need your immune system to rejuvenate.
For
You need your
sure.
brain to kind of keep itself in check. So
Growth happens during sleep,
yes,
right?
yeah, a lot of growth in a lot of different
See a
ways.
kid wake up and you think like they grew an inch overnight.
Yeah,
They literally did grow an inch
right,
overnight.
right. And it's very important to keep us healthy.
For sure, for sure.
Yes.
Um,
Teens are their own special. We find that when they're sleeping more and they're more well rested, they're able to deal with those hormonal up and downs, and there's less depression, there's less suicidal ideations, there's less, of all the negative effects of
sure.
being a teenager with all that stress right now. So that's in the forefront of
For
teen
sure.
research right now.
And it's important for parents to understand that it's not just that their teenagers suddenly decided to be a night owl.
Mm-hmm.
Their melatonin doesn't kick in till later when they hit
Right.
adolescence, and
Mm-hmm.
their cortisol doesn't kick up until later in the morning. So their circadian rhythm shifts, and it's really important to note like that's biology. That's not them just deciding that they want to stay up late.
Right.
So again, like in your family, problem solve that. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about ways so that that teenager staying awake isn't impeding other people's ability to sleep, and have those conversations. And if the school is not shifting their time for middle and senior school so that these kids still have to get there early, you got to help them figure that out.
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't understand, how as the kids get older and they do shift their time schedule to a later date, all of the older schools, they come in earlier. So it really
No.
should be the opposite. The little ones that are getting up at 5 a.m. and they're ready to go,
Yes.
they should be going
Start
to
them
school
at school at
early.
7.
Yeah, yeah. Let
Exactly.
them go to school first, and then they get home
Exactly.
first, they go to bed first. So, but I don't know why
Yeah.
the administrations don't do that.
And then you layer sports practices on top of that, and it's
Sure.
there are a lot of things as a parent you can't control about the system. What you can do is know the kids you have,
Mm-hmm.
know the body budgets of the kids you have, know what your family's constraints are and what their opportunities are, and within that collaborate as much as possible so that there are as many wins as possible within that.
Right.
And that might mean saying no to some extracurricular activities because the value of sleep and downtime over the long term is much more important than them having an extra piano lesson that week.
Yeah.
It might mean as a family turning down some of the social events on the weekend because you recognize that you're going to spend that whole kid's birthday party managing behaviors
Right.
that are purely just a function of that kid being fried. They're
Yeah.
done.
Right.
And it's unfair to have put them in that situation.
It's no fun for anybody.
Exactly, exactly. And
Right.
you're asking too much of them. So, it's just if you keep that framework in mind of, my kids need sleep, my kids need downtime, my kids have their own body budgets, I have my own body budget.
Mm-hmm.
Within that, you can find a lot more peace and harmony when you keep that as the framework.
Right. So I just wanted to talk a minute about sleep posture.
Ah, yes, please do.
Yes. So I find that in my practice, a lot of people, they'll have their toddler bed, then they go into like a big boy bed, and then they
Okay.
keep that bed until they move out of the house. Right.
Yes.
So you're a lot different size when you're little than
Mhm.
you are when you're a teenager, right? And
That makes
mattresses
sense.
only last about 8 to 10 years, so they start to break down.
Right. That makes sense.
So, I think it's important to mention that, sleeping on your back or side are probably the least amount of pressure on the body.
Okay.
Stomach sleeping, although some people, once you're asleep, if that's your
Right. You're
preference,
flipping
you're going to do it
around.
anyway. But that puts the most stress on your body.
Okay, that's good to know.
Sure.
What about like, can you pillow yourself or something if you're
Yes.
sleeping on your stomach?
Yeah. So sleeping on your stomach, what I have people do is I'll have them either try to put a pillow underneath their shoulder, their upper torso,
Okay.
put a pillow underneath their leg or knee so that they're kind of bent and they're leaning a little bit
Okay.
so that the
Okay.
head,
That
at
makes
least it
sense.
gives the head a little bit of a break.
Right. Oh yeah, because I guess if you're sleeping on your stomach, you're either like face down
Yeah,
or
or you turn your
you're
head and then you
turning.
wake up and
Right.
you've been like that, and then you end up with some neck strain
That makes
overnight.
sense.
Right.
Okay.
So I usually recommend try and sleep on your back. If
Okay.
you do that, you really want to support your neck,
Okay.
and you want to have a pillow underneath your knees. So that supports your low back. So you're not putting
Okay.
strain. You want the bed to be firm, but not overly firm. You don't want to sleep on a board.
Right.
You want your spine to be comfortable. You want your spine to be straight as much as you
Okay.
can. Sleeping on your side, you want your pillow to be the distance from the ear to the bed, which is usually about the width of your shoulder.
Okay.
Right. So you have a small pillow, you end up tilting your head. It's too
Right. You got
big,
a
you end
big
up tilting your
pillow.
head.
Okay.
So, find a pillow that's comfortable for you. And even pillows wear out. So a lot of people, they'll say, oh my God, I've had this pillow since I was 3. And you look at it and it's been washed 1,000 times. It's this little raggy
Full
little
of
thing.
drool and
So I usually have them, I'll say, you can snuggle that pillow forever if you want to, but we need to get something a little bit more ergonomic to support your head.
makes
Because
sense.
there's a lot of valuable material up here, and we really need to support this and the signaling to your body.
That makes
So
sense.
we want that to all be intact.
Do you have places that you recommend that folks go to source pillows and mattresses that you trust, or is it really just personal preference?
I think it's personal preference.
Okay,
I think right now, I think mattresses are very expensive.
this is true.
I always say, a true memory foam mattress is going to
Okay.
remember bad posture as well as it remembers good posture.
Ah,
But there are some really good eco-friendly hybrid type mattresses that are a
okay.
little bit of memory foam. They're made naturally, hopefully sourced in the United States or Canada.
Or
Um,
Canada. Yay, Canada.
but sometimes a little bit of coils. You want something that's going to be durable. I
Okay.
just find that you get the ones that come in the box and they're all kind of shriveled up, and then you open the box and there's all of a sudden there's a mattress
There's a
there.
mattress in your, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know enough to know the quality of those. So
Okay.
I would say something that's healthy, something that's hybrid,
Okay.
and something that's going to fit the way you sleep.
Okay. So we're talking good sleep structure and sleep tools, a routine,
A routine,
a dark
definitely.
room, a cool room, and I think the other piece that we touched on or didn't really touch on with routine is the bedtime routine doesn't have to look the same for every child in your house,
Hmm.
right? But it should contain some element of cleanliness,
Yeah,
some element of connection with parents or caregivers, whether that's stories, whether that's snuggles, whether that's a little bit of low key, playing on the floor kind of thing. And then some element of, the lights getting dimmer and them getting kind of snuggled into bed
right.
and
It's
prepared
back
for.
a little bit to more like sensory. So does that child like to hear a story? Is that going to calm them down? Do
Right,
they like to have a diffuser in the room? Do they like to have a super soft blanket?
right. Yeah, white
A bit
noise,
of
right?
music, white
Yeah,
noise. So
different
so
for
it's
for
really
every
getting
kid.
to know your child and what their preferences are.
For sure. Now, my one suggestion going back to the screens is if you are reading to your child, Audible's tricky because we process what we're hearing differently when it's a random voice versus when it's someone sitting snuggled up next to us and we're looking at pictures and they're reading us a story.
Right.
My personal preference for kids would be that they not be listening to an audible story by themselves if they're little, if they're in middle school or high school, and that's a different thing. But for little ones, that quality connection time, that seeing the words on the page, even if they can't read them, they will over time make connections between what they're hearing and what they're seeing,
Right.
and just that tangible. Like if you're reading on a Kindle, they're getting these screens in their faces right before bed. So,
Right. So a screen is a screen is a screen, whether it's a video game or it's a book that you're
yeah,
reading. You really want to get the electronics out of the
out of
room.
the bedroom. Yeah, for
Right.
sure. For sure.
And it's also to just acknowledge that, too much sleep is not a good thing either.
That's true.
So if you
I have
find your
not
kid,
found that,
yeah,
but
but if the kids need an abundant amount of sleep, or that you have teens and they just don't want to get out of bed, and that's on a consistent basis, and it correlates with some other behaviors, sometimes you do need to intervene and you need to really find out what's going on there, because it might not just not be that they're just tired. There may be something that they're either not sharing with you or something that they're feeling that they don't understand. So we
for
have to keep
sure.
that in mind,
For
that
sure.
sleep is
Behavior is
important, but too much sleep
always
is not better.
And it might be that they're in bed for the proper number of hours, but they're not actually getting quality sleep.
Right.
And so they're still tired because
Mm.
they're not getting enough of what they need. So behavior is always communication. That is my mantra. Whatever you are seeing is telling you something.
Right.
And, being a detective is, a great way to dig in a little bit and figure out what's going on.
Right. And it's probably a good idea to peek in on them every so often. And, if they're snoring, just to see if there are reasons why they're not sleeping well, then
Right.
there certainly are medical issues that can be addressed that may help them sleep better.
Yeah, if they're getting up to pee a bunch of times in the night, or there's
Right.
other kinds of things. Talk to your certified functional medicine practitioner, right, Dr.
That's
Kate?
right. That's right. So we have all
So,
kinds of questionnaires, and we ask you all these things to try and target why you're doing the things that you're doing.
so talk to me about the rainbow, eating the rainbow.
Yes. So nutrition, we know nutrition is important, right? And I was also I'm big on studies, and just looking back at 2009, there was a study that showed that 8 out of 10 adults are not meeting the recommendations for
for
eating the different colors of
for veg
vegetables.
for
For
vegetables.
vegetables.
Wow,
Yeah. 8 out of 9, or 8 out of 10, rather,
are not getting what they
are
need.
not getting what they need of their
Wow.
greens, their reds, their purples, their yellows, all of those things.
All
And
right.
then also in 2015, there was a study that showed that there were 13% of adults that were meeting the daily requirement of fruit,
Okay.
and about 9% were meeting the daily requirement for vegetables. So
Okay.
we know that adults are going to have a wider palate than kids. So
Right.
we can only imagine that if we look at kids, it's going to be a lot worse than that,
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's going to
right?
narrow. Yeah.
Right. So looking at when I try to teach about eating fruits and vegetables, especially to children, right?
Mhm.
Children love rainbows. Children love color. Children love having a choice. So there's different ways that we can, if you look at your red vegetables, for example. So red vegetables have a lot of lycopene in them. They have a lot of different amino acids, and those things have health benefits. So you look at the orange vegetables, and they have a lot of your vitamin A and your carotenoids, and those are good for your skin and your eyes. And then your green vegetables, those are your B vitamins, right?
Mhm.
Vitamin K, which helps you with clotting. You've got a lot of your uh, detox, so they help your liver,
Okay.
they help your
My
biochemistry
husband
function.
calls them nature's pipe cleaners.
Exactly, right? But these are so important. And if you're not eating them, then everything gets kind of backed up.
Right.
So we can always take pills and we can take supplements, but
Right.
why not do it with food if you can,
Right.
right? Makes life so much easier. So you've got your greens, you've got your blues and your purples, and these are your anti-inflammatories, your berries.
Is that like, are beets included under that? Are they
Beets
under
would
the
be
purple?
included with
Okay.
that. Beets
Okay.
they're helpful for the liver, they're helpful for your gallbladder, so inflammation, anti-aging, oxidative stress.
Ooh,
So we
talk to me
talk
about
about,
anti-aging.
yep,
Okay.
we talk about body budgets, right? And
Yeah.
children are like little factories. So factories produce all kinds of fumes and exhaust. And our body requires these antioxidants to be able to take that and break it down and get rid of it, or else they have to store it somewhere. It ends up being
Absolutely.
stored in fat tissue, and then there's obesity later on. So those kinds of things. So we really want to make sure that we eat a lot of our blues and our purples,
Right.
and that's the resveratrol in the red grapes, the wine. We don't want to feed that to our children, but we can feed it to
No,
ourselves.
but toddler or child can have a grape and mama can have a glass of wine.
Exactly.
We're all getting our resveratrol.
Right. And then don't forget about the brown and the white fruits, which are more like your mushrooms. That's your cruciferous vegetables, your cauliflower,
Your cabbage and
your
that kind of
garlic and
thing.
cabbage and all of those things. And so they
Okay.
have a lot of antiviral, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial effects,
Okay.
effects on the body, on the liver, the
Mhm.
gallbladder, the
I
gut,
love that
all of
you
those
link
good things.
that to the body budget. I remember when I was teaching, someone did a study about sugar and kids and
Mhm.
concluded that sugar does not cause hyperactivity in children. And I laughed out loud. I was like, this person has clearly never spent time around any human child who's eaten
Right.
some sugar.
Right.
They attributed it to the excitement of being around whatever the event is, right? Because
Yeah.
sugar
Being
comes in
around the
birthday cakes
lollipop.
and
Hmm.
carnivals and whatnot. But you can feel it as an adult. You can
Yeah,
feel what happens a little while after you have sugar or caffeine.
sure.
The impacts in a child's body are going to be exponentially more.
Right,
And, if we're talking about behavior, what's going in nutritionally is causing a variety of different states for them, whether
right,
they're, more keyed up, whether they're more lethargic, whether they're keyed up and then they crash. It's all body budget,
right.
you know?
And the way I try to portray it to parents and also to just adults is that you think of your cells, right? And that you need a door to open it up, right?
Right,
So the sugar, you eat all this sugar, the sugar comes knocking on the door, and then it opens up and it goes in, right?
right,
But after a while, that cell's going to get full.
right.
And so then it comes knocking and knocking and knocking, and it doesn't open the door.
So then where does it
Right?
go?
So then you get your insulin, which is produced, and insulin's
Okay.
job is to get that sugar into the cell.
Okay. So it's like an extra key, but
Right.
at a
So
bigger
it's
cost
like
to your body.
exactly right. So
Okay.
it's the key and it's a hard knocker and it knocks and it
Right.
knocks and it
Like that
knocks. And eventually
sledgehammer.
the insulin can't do it either. So
Right.
if we're giving these kids all this sugar and their cells are filling up at an earlier age, that's why we're seeing earlier onset diabetes.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
after a while, the body's just not going to take it in anymore.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Okay. And that
things like,
explains why you see type 2 diabetes. Typically, we used to see it only in like seniors,
right,
because they reached the point where their body just couldn't do it anymore.
right.
Interesting.
Yep. And
Okay.
exercise is one of the best ways to open up a tunnel into those cells so
Oh,
that you don't have to open the door. It just kind of goes in, right? So you think about it as kids eat the sugar,
mhm.
right? And then they run around like crazy. So it's not a mistake by the body
Right.
to
That's
have them
interesting.
get hyperactive because it increases their exercise, which then opens up these receptors and the
Right.
sugar can go in the cells
So
and
it's
they can
nature's
use it
way of
for energy.
protecting them
Yeah, so a lot
again.
of these things are not, they may be maladaptive, but they're not mistakes by the body. The body is doing what it can to try and adapt.
It's interesting because, we
Yeah.
started tonight talking about how the brain's job isn't to think, the brain's job is to keep everything in balance. That's a beautiful example of
Hmm.
how, the brain is working overtime to control all of these systems. And when we jack up the level of sugar in the system,
Hmm.
it's figured out something to kind of fix it, but that
Hmm.
can't last forever.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah. So there's all these different biochemical things. And if you think about them and you break them down, and that's part of what functional medicine does,
right,
is you look at how the body is reacting and you say, well, what, similar to what you say, what does the child need right now? What
right,
is going on in the body right now that these things are happening
right,
simultaneously
right.
and the body is starting to break down. So that's what's so excited. It's kind of like putting the puzzle together
Right.
and
You're a
figuring it out.
detective based on the
Right.
body's behaviors. I'm a detective based on sort of observable behaviors. It's,
Right.
so
Yeah. So
interesting.
it is really fascinating.
Yeah. Huh.
So now we've talked a little bit about food. So how do we go about incorporating all of these colors? I have a big list.
Mm.
It's a phytonutrient list that I call it. And so there's all of the colors, and then there's a list of foods in all of those colors.
Right.
Right. So how could we use that to incorporate into a partnership between parents and their child in making a healthy lunch
Right.
and having them both partake so that the parent can be sure the kid's getting some, but the kid is making a choice
Right.
to, I want to pick these orange things, I want to pick these yellow things. And as long as
Right.
they pick two or three a day,
They're
wouldn't that be a better lunch for them?
for sure. And, one of the things that we sort of say in the parent coaching world is the parent's job is to provide, the
Hmm.
child's job is to decide. So
Okay.
this applies whether it's a lunchbox, whether it's an after school snack, whether it's what's on the dinner table. Kids can only eat from choices that you have in the house.
Yeah.
So, now this is it's complicated because, if you're looking at it from a perspective of, you obviously don't want to cause disordered eating in your child by labeling things as healthy and unhealthy, or these are good foods and bad foods, or junk food or whatever. Food neutral is really the goal, where we can enjoy a wide variety of things based on what our body feels like it needs. But that takes a long time to build. So when they're younger, parents have a ton of control over what comes into the house.
Hmm.
So the kids make choices. You can set up a kind of a system where, in our lunchbox, we have to have a protein and we have to have a fruit and we have to have two vegetables or whatever you want that to look like based on your family's, values. Also, it depends on what the resources are at the school. I happened to teach at a middle school where there were microwaves for the kids. So they'd bring in leftovers. So like the lunchroom was amazing. There'd be like curries and dumplings and like all these amazing foods that they brought in from their various family backgrounds. But if you're in a place where, you're literally taking out a lunchbox and, you maybe have an ice pack in the bottom, but otherwise like it's a sandwich and some carrot sticks and an apple. The key there is making sure that the kids are as involved as possible in not just in the lunch making process, but involved in the meal planning process, right? What meals the family's going to have that week, making the grocery list, going to the grocery store, preparing the food with you. Toddlers can be washing fruits and vegetables, and they can be pulling the grapes apart, and they can be, if it's toddler, make sure you're cutting those grapes. But they can be really involved, and the more involved they are in the food preparation and in the choices, the more they're just naturally going to want to eat it.
That makes sense.
So that's a huge thing. The other thing I think parents forget is that kids can't eat as much as we do. So when we choose their portions for them, they look at it and are completely overwhelmed.
Right.
Especially if we have you have to finish what's on your plate kind of mentality. Just like how the body budget is different day to day, hunger is different day to day. Your 5-year-old might eat everything in sight on a Monday and a Tuesday, and on Wednesday they're barely picking at their food. Right? It's so if you look at their nutrition and their eating habits over time, they don't have to eat everything in the rainbow at one meal. Right? They don't have to eat everything in the rainbow in one day. They have to eat it over time. And so anything that we as adults turn into a battle, like I'm insisting that you are eating those beets for dinner today.
Right.
The brain is a memory making machine, an association making machine. So it is going to associate dinner time sucks because I'm getting told what to do and I'm being told to eat this thing that tastes terrible that I had no say in. Right. So when you make meal times meaningful, when you make the lunch, when you're making lunches together, it shouldn't be mom in the kitchen after the kids are in bed making lunch for everybody. Right. It should be everybody in there contributing to the process so that as they grow, they get good at doing it on their own. And then they're choosing from what's in the house, right? So it's really about collaboration. It's about looking at things over time. And when parents say things like, I feel like I didn't eat enough vegetables today, I'm going to make sure I load up a few more in my lunchbox tomorrow. Kids are hearing that. They're not hearing, I was bad today. I ate birthday cake at the office luncheon. They're hearing, my body feels like it didn't choose enough vegetables today. So I'm going to make up for it tomorrow by adding some extras in.
I see.
Right. It's a different way of looking at food and nutrition and that collaboration and that making food joyful, rather than, I have to punish myself because I didn't eat enough vegetables today. So I need to only eat vegetables tomorrow, kind of.
Oh boy, I wish I had you when my kids were little.
Right. It's a whole thing, right?
It's like a whole different world now.
And you also have to take into consideration two sensory issues. Right.
Yes.
There are people for whom celery tastes like poison. There are people for whom certain textures are just like they make them gag. Respect that.
Yeah.
Right. As adults, if someone tried to tell me that I needed to eat something that legitimately made me feel sick, I'd be like, screw you. You're not the boss of me.
Right.
So as kids, we want to, just like with the body budget where we make sure they're safe and then expand their comfort zone from there. With foods, make sure at every meal, there's at least one thing they're going to eat. And over time, you can gradually expand and get them more comfortable. But anything you turn into a battle, you're not going to win unless you're literally forcing it into their mouth. And then they're just going to throw it up.
That's really good advice. Really good advice. So we're about at that hour mark.
Yes, we should probably.
I know that we have one big topic left, which we probably couldn't just do another talk on this topic.
Homework.
It's homework.
Homework. Yes.
So, do you want to go into homework a little bit? Do you want to do another topic? We can. We can do it another day.
We can do homework. I can do homework really quickly.
Okay.
essentially, just like with food, anything that gets turned into a battle is going to, the brain is going to make those associations. So for your kids, if they have what is a reasonable amount of homework and they're refusing to do it, behavior is communication. There is a reason.
Right.
If you sit down with them and do the homework with them, you have just put a Band-Aid on the problem. If you reward them into doing their homework or punish them for not doing it, you are just, again, slapping a Band-Aid on. What you need to do is be a detective and work with them to figure out, is it that it is not a reasonable amount of homework for a child of this age and you need to talk to the school? Is it that they didn't understand the lesson and so they're sitting there feeling overwhelmed and like they want to cry, in which case you sitting with them isn't going to change any of that because you weren't in the lesson either. And I don't know about you, but like new math is
Forget it. Yeah, I don't
wild. So then depending on the age of the child, you need to work out with them a plan for them to advocate for themselves with the teacher for an additional lesson or for some additional support. It might be that it's way too easy and it's just busy work and they want nothing to do with it. In which case, again, depending on the age of the child, older ones advocate for themselves, younger ones, you advocate. Why do they need to do it? Let them go outside and play.
Right.
If it is a reasonable amount of homework at a level that they can manage and they just don't want to do it, that's not your problem. They have a choice to make, right? And you can say to them, I understand that you'd rather be playing Xbox, or I understand that you'd rather be with your friends. I get that. I wish for that for you too, right? Empathy. Your teacher has an expectation that this is going to be done. So what's your plan? Right? If your family has a rule about bedtime, if your family has a rule about when devices are getting turned off and that kid needs a laptop to do the homework, you talk with them about that and say, remember our parameters. The computer has to be shut off by 7:30. It's already 6:45. How can I help you? What is your plan? If they don't do it, that's not your problem. Right?
Let the teacher deal with it.
Exactly. The school will have a process in place. So really, the homework is about, you're not doing it for them. You are not their manager. You are not their assistant. You are a consultant to their learning.
Okay.
And if you're looking for an amazing book, The Self-Driven Child by Ned Johnson and William Stixrud is
I'll have to get that.
phenomenal about walking parents through being a consultant to their learning. If it's a little one, kindergarten, grade 1, and they're too tired, they don't have to do that homework. They shouldn't have homework. But talk to the teacher and say, look, based on what my kid needs, right? Downtime and sleep are hugely important.
Mm-hmm.
It is not in our family's best interest for them to be doing this homework every single night. Could we please take an hour on a Saturday morning when everybody's fresh and we'll do it then?
Yeah.
So you're still meeting the school's need, but you can't change the system as a parent, but you can advocate for what your family and your humans need.
Right.
So, and that's all I will say about homework today.
And I just wanted to add a couple of things is one thing we know about children, right? If they're not comfortable, they're going to let you know. Right? Whether it's going to be a tantrum or they're holding their neck or they've got a backache, they're going to let you know. Their frontal lobes are not developed enough that they can keep that in and move on with the day. They're going to let you know right away. So from a chiropractic perspective, I think really looking at their ergonomics, looking at their hand and wrist ergonomics while they're typing, looking at their desk ergonomics. So you want their feet to be on the floor, right? If their feet are not on the floor, if knees are not at 90 degrees, then put a pillow, put a box, put some stacked up books. So you want them to be comfortable. You don't want them getting numbness and tingling because their feet are dangling and it's cutting the circulation off. Right. So you want to have a chair that's comfortable for them. You want to put a pillow behind them if they need a little bit of extra support, especially for the little ones. If they're sitting all the way back, it's too hard. You need to have things their size.
That makes perfect sense.
So if you need a kid's keyboard, you can get a child's keyboard. You can get a child's mouse. You can get a book support, something to hold the books up. So you're craning their neck forward.
That makes perfect sense.
You want the monitor to be at eye level.
Okay.
Right. So you can adjust all of those things and you want to look at where they're studying. Where are they comfortable? Again, it goes back to body senses,
Right.
Their sensitivities, it
Right.
goes back to body budget. Are they more comfortable sitting at the kitchen table? Are they on the couch, beanbag chair?
Right.
So you want to look at the ergonomics, but in a place where they're comfortable and they can concentrate. And if they're
Yeah.
not comfortable at their desk, don't make them sit at the desk, because they're going to find every reason to not do what they need to do.
That makes perfect sense. Some kids need to flop out on their bellies and be kind of up on their elbows, but then, you probably have some suggestions about how to protect their back so that that's not, they're not doing long-term damage while they're doing that.
Right. So if the kids are complaining of headache or pain or numbness or tingling, we
Mhm.
know that if there's strain on the body, there's more fatigue.
Right.
Right? If there's strain on the body, then there's going to be less concentration, which is going
Body
to impact
budget,
blood flow to the brain, their ability to concentrate, and their ability to learn.
for sure. For
Right?
sure.
So, and computers, iPads, all those nothing is designed for ergonomics.
Right.
So we
Right.
have to keep that in mind. And that's a whole nother set of issues when you need to prop everything up, and
Right.
so there's a lot of limitations. But their spine, we want the spine, they're growing. They're growing. So we need to protect that spine, and we need to foster its ability to grow and lengthen. And that's going to change. So sitting at the desk that they had when they were 6 and doing their homework isn't going to work when they're 10, when they're
Right.
11.
Right. That makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
So simple, inexpensive home tools. You
Mhm.
can use pillows, stack books underneath the keyboard, stack books underneath the computer to raise it up. If they're sitting on the couch, put it
Right.
under the laptop so that they're at a good angle and they're not craning over, they're not bending their neck, things like that. So you really want to be supported, and eye strain. So you don't want them staring. There's a couple of really good apps nowadays. So I always use the rule that if you're spending 20 minutes on the computer, you
Mhm.
want to spend 20 seconds looking at something 20 feet away.
Okay. The 20-20-20 rule.
20
All right.
20 20 rule. So try and do that. There's a great app now called, I think it's Pomodoro.
Okay.
And it actually sets a timer for 20 minutes. And you have the option to listen to, relaxing sounds or whatever. And then after 20 minutes, it says, it's now time for your break. Right?
Huh.
It's stupid easy, this app. I wish I'd
But
invented it.
people forget when they're in the middle of.
Right. You get into it and then you forget and you're like, I just want to do this one more thing, just one more thing.
Right.
And then it gives you a 5-minute break. And so you can set parameters. You can say, okay, and during this 5-minute break, I want you to get up. I want you to walk around. I
Right.
want you to look across the room, look
Right.
far
Go
away.
look out the window. Go
Right.
do. Yeah.
Whatever you need to do. So you want to try and get up every 20, 30 minutes. You want to try and reduce eye strain if you can.
Okay.
And blue light glasses.
Okay.
So we've already talked about not having that blue light in your face at night.
Right.
But I think just more eye strain. The more you're looking at the computer, the more it's going to damage your eyesight over time. We all know now we need glasses and our arms are not long enough to see. So we
Right.
want to prevent those things if we can. If we can.
Because the body has not evolved as quickly as technology is evolving. So.
Yes. Yes. So it's kind of saying, let's do an app to try and rest our eyes and our
Right.
electronics, but
Yeah, but don't keep your phone near you when you're
right,
working.
right. But if you do prefer an app and you can't get away from your phone, then
Mm.
there's a 20-20-20 app.
Okay.
There's this Pomodoro Timer app.
Okay.
So just
Now, for
little things that
kids
you can use.
especially, this is one of the things I should have mentioned in homework. For kids and teens, they shouldn't have their phone near them when they're doing their homework, because it's so easy to just pick it up and get distracted by whatever's happening.
Right.
So for them, particularly because they're trying to learn those habits, if they're working on a laptop or a Chromebook for their work, they should have all the windows closed except for the one they're actually using.
Mm-hmm.
And not, so maybe the app for the 20-20-20 is on a parent's phone in another room or something, so that it's still getting utilized,
Right.
but not right there. Because one of the reasons, aside from having too much homework, one of the reasons why it's taking teenagers so long to do their homework is because they're constantly getting distracted, and then they need to refocus.
Mm-hmm.
So
And it's a really fun tool. It's like a little hat that has a laser on it. And if
okay.
you have a playroom, you have to have a big wall, but it's like a big wall with a map.
Okay.
So they take their break and they put this little hat on, and with the laser, they have to use the laser pointer and follow the maze. So
Wait,
not
where is
only
this?
are they, this is actually, it's an orthopedic like a PT device,
Oh,
a
that's
physical
cool.
therapy device. But picture that. I mean, then you're also you're focusing on this. You're using your brain to follow the maze, but you're
Right.
also moving your body. So
Oh,
by the
that's
time you've reached
cool.
the end, you've moved your head all over, all
Right.
around. So you're stretching your neck, you're moving your eyes,
God,
you're
if
moving your
only we could
brain.
all have
So
one of those in
yeah,
the house. That would
yeah,
be lovely.
yeah. So there's all kinds of little tools that you can use. But if you don't have the resources, there's certain simple little things that you can do.
Yeah, just
So
get
there's
up and
something for
move.
everybody.
Yeah. Awesome. That's I
I
think
think we'll wrap it up there. I want to
we
thank you so much. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new.
thank you, as do
You
I.
are.
It was great to learn more about the medical side of things.
Yeah,
So
so
wonderful.
if you're listening to this and you have some questions, so I am Dr. Randi Case at Morris Spine and Sport. So it's www.morrisspineandsport.com, 973-285-0888. Follow us on social media. And Kate, you want to?
I am Kate Garzon at Guided Parenting Support GPS. So if you're watching this, you'll see guidedparentingsupport.com on the bottom of the screen. You can also follow along at Instagram and Facebook at Guided Parenting Support. And I just started a TikTok account at GPS for Parents. I
Oh,
haven't posted
great.
anything yet, but I have an account, so I will start posting things.
Okay, you're ahead of me. I want to
Um,
see you do it first, and then I'll do it. You'll give me some compassionate, empathetic way to do it. I know it.
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it
Okay.
out. Randy, thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you. I always learn something, and
Yes,
I'd
always a
love to
pleasure.
see
Let's do
you.
it again soon.
Sounds great. Take care.
All right. Bye.